Mr. President.
Senator from Florida.
Mr. President, the crisis at the United States southern border is raging out of control. And like Joe Biden, I've traveled down to the southern border to hear from local leaders, law enforcement, and our brave Border Patrol agents. I had the opportunity to talk with Border Patrol in Arizona and Texas and listened as they told me about how hard their job has become thanks to Joe Biden's radical open border policies. Let me just say, these men and women are absolute heroes. In places like Yuma, Border Patrol agents are encountering illegal migrants every day, some of whom are dangerous criminals, traffickers, drug cartel members, and even terrorists. Others are just families victimized by the cartels. I encountered a family from Haiti during my last visit. I watched them cross the border through a massive hole in the border wall caused by Joe Biden's decision not to complete the already paid-for wall. These families are victims of the cartels. Once in America, many of them live a life of indentured servitude and debilitating debt in which they have to send nearly all their money back to the savage cartels. These people and their families are owned by the cartels, and Joe Biden is letting it happen. Many of the children are trafficked, made to pose as the children of people they don't even know. And we know that so many women and children who make this journey are brutally victimized and raped. But still, the cartels push these families over the border. It's all just money to them. Joe Biden is making the cartels richer. That's why our brave Border Patrol agents, that's what our brave Border Patrol agents are up against. What makes you mad is that while all this is happening, massive piles of supplies to complete the border, all already paid for the American taxpayer, are just sitting in piles in the desert going to waste. The Biden administration refuses to use these materials because they want an open border. Secretary Mayorkas testified in the Homeland Security Committee that the border is closed. Really? Look at El Paso. Mr. President, I told Secretary Mayorkas that he might be the only person in America that actually believes the border is secure. He's it. The truth, as many of my colleagues and I know and seen with our own eyes, is that the border is wide open. Since Joe Biden took office, more than 5 million people have illegally crossed our southern border. And I'm afraid it's about to get a lot worse with President Biden's allowing Title 42 to end. Thank God the Supreme Court kept Title 42 in place, at least for now. We're hearing reports that up to 18,000 people a day will be illegally storming across our border every day once Title 42 is lifted. And Joe Biden still doesn't have a plan. Don't forget, the Biden administration once said, the Obama-Biden administration once said that just 1,000 attempted crossings per day would be a crisis. So what does President Biden call 18,000 a day? It's his call to make. He created the disaster. So that's why I'm here with my good friend from Iowa, Senator Joni Ernst. We think it's time to end the madness on the southern border, and if Joe Biden won't do his job, we should let the states take care of it themselves. I was a governor, so I know I might be a little bit biased, but I think governors know what works best for their individual states way better than the federal government does here in Washington, D.C. Remember I mentioned the massive piles of wall material that the Biden administration refuses to use? Our bill, the Build It Act, would force the federal government to transfer any material associated with the construction of the southern border barrier to any state upon request so these states can do what Joe Biden refuses to do, finish the wall. As Senator Ernst has noted, since President Biden's order in January 2021 to cease construction on the southern border barrier went into effect, the federal government began paying contractors over $3 million a day to look over unused border material. It's estimated that roughly $250 million in taxpayer-funded materials are just sitting on our southern border. So instead of just doing his job, upholding our laws, and securing the border, President Biden is burning $3 million of your tax dollars each and every day so people can babysit wall material that he refuses to use. By passing this good bill today, we're giving states the ability to provide what Biden has failed to deliver: border security and a fighting chance to get this massive humanitarian and national security crisis under control. In Florida, we're proud to be an immigration state. We love immigration, but it has to be legal. Illegal immigration threatens our safety, undermines our legal process, and hurts those who have been waiting to come through legal channels. But under Biden's system of open borders and illegal immigration, we're seeing dangerous individuals trying to come into this country, and drugs are pouring across the border. More than 100,000 Americans have died from fentanyl and opiate overdoses in the last year, and more are dying every day. Doesn't Joe Biden care about this? Our Democrat colleagues do not have the luxury of ignoring this crisis any longer. American families cannot take this loss and heartbreak due to incompetence in Washington any longer. We must act to secure the border now. Floridians and all Americans want to live in safe communities where their families can thrive and prosper all across this great country. Unfortunately, Joe Biden's policies of open borders and amnesty have been a total disaster for our nation. He has laid out the welcome mat for traffickers and cartel members and has ignored U.S. laws designed to keep American families safe. We can't let this stand any longer because the American people deserve better. I hope our colleagues will stand with Senator Ernst and me today to pass this bill. Then we can work with the House to start truly addressing this crisis before it's too late. I'd now like to recognize my colleague from Iowa, Senator Joni Ernst.
Mr. President.
Senator from Iowa.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that Evan Carroll, a military fellow from my office, be granted floor privileges for the remainder of the Congress.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to thank my friend and my colleague from Florida for joining me today on the floor to talk about a very important subject which Americans are watching unfold every single day on their television. The Biden White House claims we've been doing the work to secure the border. In fact, some in the administration have said the border is secure. With thousands of migrants illegally crossing our southern border every single day and drug cartels funneling fentanyl into our communities, the Biden administration's talking points are actually a bunch of malarkey. With the Biden administration attempting to do away with Title 42, a policy put in place under the Trump administration to turn away illegal immigrants, the U.S.-Mexico border is going from crisis to catastrophe. Our hardworking Border Patrol agents are overwhelmed. They are exhausted, and they are hurting. They, too, want a break for the holidays. But sadly, their Christmas will be spent dealing with the drug cartels and processing migrants. Without Title 42 in place, Biden administration officials have estimated that nearly 500,000 illegal immigrants, which is almost 100 times the size of my hometown of Red Oak, Iowa, could cross our southern border each month. That's on top of the over 2.2 million Border Patrol encounters this year, which is 500,000 more than the previous year. Even more concerning, 98 of those apprehended were on the terrorist watch list. On top of this being a humanitarian and national security disaster, Biden's open border policies are intensifying our nation's drug epidemic. Illicit fentanyl overdoses are now the #1 cause of death among adults ages 18 to 45. This administration has truly turned every state into a border state. And to make matters worse, the Biden administration is telling states they don't have a right to secure their own borders. Just last week, the Biden Justice Department sued Arizona Governor Doug Ducey in an effort to stop the state from constructing its own border barrier. Arizona was simply trying to protect Americans from drug smuggling and human trafficking. Well, Arizona, since President Biden won't help you, I do have a solution. Instead of blocking states from installing much-needed safety precautions, we need to make use of the border wall materials that are already bought and paid for by American taxpayers. $350 million worth of concrete, steel, and fencing to build the barrier are just sitting idle, collecting dust and rust, and taxpayers are covering the costs to babysit these unused materials. This is government waste at its finest. So, Mr. President, I have a question. Why not let states who want to build a wall access these already paid for materials? Not only would it save money, it would deter the unprecedented number of border crossings we've seen as a result of Biden's border policies. America is, and always has been, a welcoming nation. But those seeking a better life here have an obligation to respect our laws, including our immigration laws. And the President has a sworn duty to enforce them and to protect the American people. That's why I'm asking the Senate today to pass my Borders Unused, Idle, and Lying Dormant Inventory Transfer, or the Build It Act, which would turn over the unused materials already purchased by taxpayers to construct the southern border barrier to any state wishing to finish the job. This bill won't cost a single cent. In fact, it will prevent government waste, which Washington has in excess. It will help end the catastrophe occurring along our border and help make communities across the nation safer from the threat of violent criminals and lethal drugs. Folks, there's no way around it. President Biden's policies are fostering illegal immigration, creating a national security nightmare, and impacting the lives of far too many Americans, both in Iowa and across the country, all while costing taxpayers billions of dollars. Here's a simple solution. Pass the Build It Act and allow states to put these materials to use. Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs be discharged from further consideration of S 4294 and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. I further ask that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered, made, and laid upon the table.
Is there objection?
Madam President.
The senator from Michigan.
Reserving the right to object, this bill seeks to continue ill-advised efforts to fund and build an ineffective border wall. I agree, certainly, that we need to have strong border security, but we need to have smart and cost-effective security measures, not a wall that experts have repeatedly deemed ineffective. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to this very complex issue, and a wall is not the most effective way to secure our borders. I've long advocated for additional technology, personnel, and resources to help secure the border, which are more cost-effective. This is not a state-by-state issue. We need a whole-of-government approach to securing our borders and addressing the arrival of migrants. We need to move forward with smart, bipartisan investments that secure all of our borders instead of wasting more taxpayer dollars on a costly and ineffective wall. I urge my colleagues to oppose this misguided bill, and therefore I object.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.